Greetings! Welcome to Board Game Science. I'm your host, Dr. Ransom Poythress, and today I'm excited to share with you a little bit about the hit game Terraforming Mars, which was designed by Jacob Fryxelius and backed by Stronghold Games. Now, it's a game for about 1 to 5 players, and it's supposed to take somewhere between 90 to 120 minutes. And it was a big hit back when it came out in 2016, and it's since spawned 5 different expansions, but it came with quite a bit of work. Jacob Fryxelius, who designed the game, is part of a family of 16 individuals, and he and his 5 brothers do a lot of board game design. He himself has a doctorate in chemistry and is a college science teacher, and so when they first started working on this game back in 2011, it went through 10 rounds of playtesting before it finally got published in 2016. Let's take a look at how it's played. In Terraforming Mars, you play the game as one of several corporations trying to earn the most points while working to terraform the planet, that is, to make it livable. Gameplay is deceptively simple. The game takes place in rounds, with each round, which is supposed to represent a generation in time, consisting of 3 phases: a research, action, and production phase. Now, I've got the game here set up for a 1-player game, which it plays very well, but you can play with up to 5 people. During the research phase, you draw 4 cards from the deck. Now, after you looked at those 4 cards, you decide which, if any, you want to keep. You pay 3 mega credits, which is the in-game kind of currency, it's like money. 3 mega credits per card you want to keep. After this comes the action phase, where you may take up to 2 actions. Actions will involve paying a cost to do things, like playing a card. To play a card, the cost is usually written in the upper left-hand corner. You can play a card, or you can use a standard project, which again involves a cost. Standard projects are kind of like a common repeatable card that's always available to all players. Finally, once you've played your cards, you've taken your actions, comes the production phase, where you produce things like mega credits, steel, titanium, plants, energy, and heat. The amount you produce may vary throughout the course of the game and is indicated and tracked by these tokens on your board. And the amount you produce will be affected by the cards you play. And so you need to use your resources to play more expensive cards that will allow you to more quickly terraform the planet, earn points, and end the game. So speaking of ending the game, certain actions or cards will allow you to increase one of the 3 terraforming conditions: oxygen, water, and heat. The game ends and points are tallied once all 3 of those parameters have reached their terraforming goal. 14% oxygen on the planet, 9% water coverage, as shown by these 9 tiles, and 8 degrees Celsius temperature. So it sounds simple, right? But much of the complexity in the game rises from the cards that are available to play, which are all different. You can see it's a lot of cards. Since every card is unique, it actually forces you to make really difficult decisions about what to play and what to discard. So for example, the Cupula City card here costs 16 mega credits to play and can only be played when the oxygen is less than 10%. You gain 3 mega credit production per turn, but you lose 1 energy production per turn. You also get to place a city tile on the board, which can give you some victory points at the end. And that's just 1 card. These kinds of complex interactions on every card mean that no 2 games are ever the same. There are other additional things like awards and milestones that can add some additional layers of difficult decision making. All of this makes for one exciting and predictable game. So, as you can see, in order to be successful with a game like Terraforming Mars, you'd need to be a real Viking. You need to be a pathfinder, a sojourner, with a spirit of opportunity who rises like a phoenix with, let's see, curiosity, insight, perseverance, and ingenuity. What about the science? Terraforming Mars is science fiction, and Jacob Fryxelius has said himself that some of what he did here was influenced by authors like Kim Stanley Robinson and Robert Heinlein. So let me know in the comments below, what are some of your favorite science fiction authors? But as with all good science fiction, there's some real science here. And there's some things that are actually pretty accurate, at least in theory. So for example, the actual terraforming parameters that you're having to shoot for, the oxygen, water, and temperature, those are probably pretty accurate to what we might need on Mars. 14% oxygen represents some of what actually exists at some of those high altitude levels where humans live on Earth today. The 9% water represents what's probably our best estimate in terms of what we would actually need to have a real hydrologic cycle with things like weather and clouds and rain on a planet. And then the 8 degrees Celsius number represents what's probably our best guess at what would be necessary for a stable equatorial average temperature to sustain life. Now, aside from that, the board itself is also very accurate. It actually represents an accurate representation of the Tharsis area of Mars. And the water tiles that are here on the board are probably where water would be if water existed, because they're the lowest elevation part of this part of Mars. The plants that would be planted here are right around the equator, where they would probably grow best, because that's probably where they would be the warmest. So a lot of the things here are pretty accurate in terms of what we actually know about Mars. And, truth be told, we're on the cusp of kind of pushing into Mars. There are plans in this decade to put humans on Mars, I know. That's trickier than it sounds. So part of the difficulty is that with our current technology, it would probably take about 6 months for astronauts to get to Mars, which is pretty rough. And finding ways for them to survive the radiation and food for that whole trip there and back is pretty difficult. But there are also plans there are websites out there to colonize Mars. They're thinking about these things. How would we actually do this in the future? So despite that though, it's probably not possible. In 2018, NASA released a study where they looked at how feasible it would be to terraform Mars, and they basically concluded that with our current technology, it's not possible. And the main reason for it is that the atmospheric pressure on Mars is just not high enough. It's less than 1% of Earth's atmospheric pressure. And so even if you were to try and increase the temperature on Mars or increase the oxygen, all of that would just escape. It would just leave the planet, basically, which it doesn't do on Earth because we have enough atmospheric pressure to keep all that contained. So probably not possible. All that being the case, though, the game is supposed to take place in the year 2315. So who knows what technology we'll have by then. So there's things that are quite nice about the science here that are quite accurate, or at least represent our best guess about the way things are. But it is still science fiction, and it seems to be outside of our reach, at least for the time being. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to sharing with you the next game in a little bit. All right, take care.